Hello, everyone, and welcome to In the Flow with our spiritual CFO, Robin Wilt, and myself, Jessica Kay. We are excited to share today about ways that we are helping ourselves to feel grounded in the sacredness of this season, despite all of the craziness that may be going on around us. So we just decided on this topic right now, and in the same token, we both have planned some special ceremony and ritual to really ground us during this time. So it's interesting to see what we're up to, even without planning it, being called to create a little bit of a sacred space for ourselves. So, Robin, tell us what you have planned.
So, and it's interesting. It's so interesting how things like make full circle. So, 2 years ago, I was introduced to maybe 3 years ago fully, I was introduced to plant medicine. So, it's been part of my experience the past few years. And I knew I wanted to sit with ayahuasca again. So, I'm getting to sit with her next weekend, which I'm very excited about. So actually, during my first process, a friend of mine had given me a book. I think it's called The Grandmothers. And in there, they talk about the importance of ceremony. And, I think sometimes we think about ceremony that it has to be like this long, drawn out process, but really it's just bringing that intention and that focus to like anything that we do throughout our day, right? So if we're sitting down to like work, if we're sitting down to share time with a friend, like being really present and being really intentional with, what we're doing. Um, so yeah, for me, ceremony has taken on a new meaning, right? Obviously, you can sit in like very deep ceremony if it's like sitting with plant medicine, or you can sit in more um, immediate ceremony where you're just kind of tuning into maybe your task for the day or your intention for something that you're doing. So the other thing about intention and ceremony is that, for instance, if you are planning, um, in my case, an ayahuasca ceremony, and you're asking for this healing, the healing starts before the ceremony. So I have been triggered and working on stuff and just having all kinds of beautiful opportunities to work through some of these things that I don't want in my life anymore. So it's just the whole conversation is quite interesting. And I'm sure Jessica and I are going to continue to get into it in this episode. But when Jessica shared with me, like what she'll share with y'all, that was the first thing that popped into my head was like ceremony and just being more intentional with our time. I think the holiday time can be, I don't want to call it a throwaway time, but right, like you're kind of going out more, you're with friends. So it's like you're not really focused on goals or maybe things that you're normally focused on throughout the year. Like it kind of is just a playtime or could be a playtime. But then there's also the other energy of consumerism and that whole vibe of Christmas, which for a lot of us that are woke or who are spiritual can be a little bit overwhelming or like not in alignment with what our values are. So, maybe finding other things that you can do during this time period to cultivate the things that are actually important to you. So share with them, Jessica, your discovery, because I think it's really cool.
So for me, I've always felt like the holidays, especially this time of year, December time, is the most exciting thing for me. I love it so much. I love the cold. I love the smells. I love the taste. I just love the ambiance, the fires, like everything about it makes me super excited. And I want to say, like, probably my mid 20s, I just got tired of all of the commercialism and everything. I found myself like kind of removing myself from all the celebrations and stuff and just really um kind of hermiting and really enjoying that time to myself to be introspective and contemplative. I would do my tarot cards for the different months and even plan out like what do I want to do with my year? What do I want to let it go of? Like it's a big month for me to really kind of take stock of my life and what I want to do and where I've been and where I'm going to be. And I often find like when I write all this out at the end of the year, when I go back and look, every single thing that I had intended, and I'll maybe 5 or 10 things throughout the year, every single one is done. So it's just like you were saying, that power of intention is so important. And I would just kind of do it whenever I had the time, whenever I had the downtime, but I would make sure I took it and make that sacred space for myself. And I really felt grounded into the end of the year and stepped away from that busyness.
Mm.
Now, I recently heard about locally, one of my friends is doing this group. She has a little group that she's going to do with this, and it's based on the 13 Holy Nights Oracle deck by Lisa Day. And I don't know if you can, or by Laura Day, sorry. So Laura Day did not create the 13 Holy Nights. She created a beautiful Oracle deck for it. But the 13 Holy Nights is a pagan tradition, starts on December 21st. So the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, the solstice, or June 21st, if you're in the other hemisphere. You spend your time getting together an altar and a journal and tea and fun sounds, like creating the ambiance. And then December 24th and the 25th, you pick your first card. And then you spend that whole day and evening, whatever you dream, whatever the synchronicities are, writing it out in your journal. So you do this for 13 days. So why 13 or 13 holy nights? So 13 nights. The first night is for the whole year. It's going to give you the theme and synchronicities for the whole year that's coming up. And then each day is a month. So day 1 is the whole year. Day 2 is January. Day 3 is February and onward. So December 25th and the 26th is day 2. Any dreams, write everything out, pull that card. And what people find is the synchronicities. They go back throughout the year and like, oh, a friend came by and out of nowhere and wanted to have lunch and like, oh, I had a dream of that person on that day or that, on that holy night.
Mm.
So they're finding all these synchronicities, and that just like, for me, synchronicity like grounds me so much into surrender and trust. And that's something that Robin and I talk a lot about is it is so hard to deeply surrender and to trust. But when synchronicity happens, it reminds us like we're not on our own. We're not doing this all alone. So this is building in synchronicity into your year. And you go through, and at the end, you can look at this journal that you've created. You can pull it out throughout the year. And then like the celebration I'm going to, the beginning of the celebration is to read all the synchronicities that happened from the year before. And then you do the process, and then you come back and you gather and you share what you're looking forward to. So I love that whole thing because that's kind of what I've already been doing, but it's ritualized and it's in community. And I'm finding more and more since COVID has happened and everything kind of shut down, and I went into full hermit mode in my home and I'm working from home and everything's from home, that I'm really craving community, but not just like being around people. Like I want meaningful, deep, and really nurturing communities. So this is one of the very first things that have come up, and I'm like, I have to do it because it meets all those. Like it's already a process that I'm already kind of engaged in, and it's a new magical twist to it. And it's with a whole bunch of people. I think last year they had like 50 people. So it's with a
Oh,
whole
wow.
bunch of people, yeah, that I get to engage in. And then I also have a friend of mine coming too. So it's like, oh, it's such a beautiful thing. And the other interesting thing is like you can do it with the people in your house. So
Mm-hmm.
Laura Day wrote that she does it every year with her family, and they sit and everybody pulls their card and everybody
Oh,
journals throughout the whole thing. And then they meet together and they share. So I'm looking forward to doing it with my husband this year and just seeing how does that bring us together around a holiday tradition. And that's like, I love the idea of creating our own holiday traditions that have meaning to us, including like whatever is passed on through the family or community, but having our own traditions that really ground us in our values. And that's really what this screams to me. So super excited about it.
I love that. It's funny. Well, not funny. I say that a lot. It's ha ha ha. The 13th. I love the number 13. It's like my favorite number, right? You have the 13 days that you're working with, and then my ayahuasca ceremony starts on the 13th, and we actually have Friday the 13th this year.
Oh, wow.
Let's talk about the number 13 actually for a moment since it's coming up. So in numerology, right, you reduce it to a single digit. So 1 plus 3 is 4, which ceremony I think can create that container almost. It can create the space for the universe to bring in those synchronicities and to bring in those alignments, right? Like we're setting this container and this intention for the year ahead, for what we want to work on, what we want to heal, and then calling in that vibration, I think can be really amazing because it also brings in the stability and the structure that we need to actually, right? Four is all about that structure and having that firm foundation. Um, so yeah, I love too that you're getting to do it in a group. I think that's really magical.
Well,
Anything that we can do in a group environment is just going to maximize the energy so much more, and it's more fun.
Well, and I think that that's too, like moving into Pluto and Aquarius, like the power of the people, but it's us uniting together and, being in a place where we're all working on ourselves, but everybody in that place is working on themselves. You with the ayahuasca, me with the 13 holy nights, like we're gathering together in community to help ourselves move up to, ascend. And that I think is just so beautiful and powerful having that group container for that.
Yeah. Um, so I want to talk about because initially when Jessica and I were chatting for a few minutes before we hopped on, like she was chatting about or mentioned the holiday traditions, which she also mentioned. I think that's another, I don't remember having a ton of holiday traditions. I mean, other than like putting up the tree and, we would always go like Black Friday shopping every year. That was like, so I guess we did have traditions. Like my mom would wake us up at the crack of dawn, but that's just not like, I don't care about shopping. It's not important to me at all. Um, and I actually did because I'm single and, my holidays, I spend time with family and friends, but obviously like there's also time to myself. Um, I've thought about that. Like, oh, like what if I started to have traditions that are important to me? Like maybe going to see a movie or taking myself, whatever it is, like I can't even think of like what other thoughts were kind of running through my head. So I think that is a really beautiful reframe for it is like we don't have to take all of the traditions that we learned from our family because a lot of them are based on the more commercial side of the holidays, which that's just not important to me. um, do you remember like are there things that are important to you from
Yeah,
traditions
there
that y'all
are.
had that you are continuing or
Well, and it's things when I look back, the things that I valued the most. So, was there lots of traditions? Sure, there was a lot of different things, but it made me realize what it is about the holidays that I value, and that's around community. When
mm,
I was, young, December 24th, we would always go spend time with friends. Like we would actually go over to like 3 or 4 different people's houses who would have Christmas gatherings, and have some food. There was tons of people, but it was really like Christmas Eve was the time to spend with people that we
mm,
love and
mm,
to wasn't about presents so much. Like it was about sharing food. That's really
mm,
what it was. Like we would bring food, they would have food and we would just share food with each other. So that was in our family, like food was a big thing. We would bake, so we would spend time together baking things. We'd make platters of different like breads, pumpkin bread, and different cookies. So we had all this time together where we were working communally on baked goods, and then we would take plates of that to teachers and to our friends, and it was like that idea where I know a lot of different people have like this idea of having tea. Like that's kind of what we did, but we would make baked goods and we would have tea and we would eat baked goods, or they would have coffee and it was cool outside. There was even one year where we went caroling. So it was all this like community stuff. And it
mm.
didn't really, for me, it's like that's what I want. It doesn't really matter what we're doing. We don't have to be eating or caroling or drinking a hot cup of cider, but
Yeah.
just spending time with people and like enjoyable time. Because that's where it's like, I can think of family gatherings and there's almost always this moment where somebody gets into an argument. It's like, we're not doing that. We're enjoying spending time and, with other people. It's not heavy, it's light. It's crisp and fresh. So it was an opportunity. I mean, my home life wasn't always great, but it was an opportunity for us to kind of all pay attention and get together and spend time together. Back when I was growing up. Now it's like one of the few times we get together, which is where those kind of arguments ensue. But that's really what I want as we talk about creating our own traditions. That's what I look forward to is like, where can I spend time with people I care about and do things that are meaningful to me that create this light and open feeling because it can
Mhm.
feel like, oh, I've got to go here and I've got to dress this way and I've got to act that way. And it's just all so much of not being in alignment with myself. Like I want to, and that's actually why I won't lie. I've spent Christmas alone by myself a couple of times on purpose because I feel so aligned with who I am that I'm just like, I can't compromise that on this special season. Like it feels like a birthday for me. Like I just don't want to compromise at all. I just want to feel free. And interestingly enough, I mentioned this too, is like we have black holes. During Christmas season, we have this galactic center. So it is bringing in all of this beautiful wisdom of our galaxy. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming, but it's just we're being inundated with wisdom. And so for me, I want to find space to bring that in and to ground it in and to use it to help me move through the next year. And that's why I really like decluttered my holidays from all of the conflict and strife and really just created a bunch of open space where people could feel that energy moving through them.
You know what's funny? I was thinking about that. I didn't plan on this, but it just kind of happened. So I have my house on it's called home exchange where you can swap your house and go travel. So it's like cheaper travel. But I had somebody reach out to me on the platform last year and she wanted to bring her kids down to Florida. She was in Durham in North Carolina.
Ooh.
And I think, oh no, she had kids and they didn't have a dog. And I have a dog. So I left the dog here. Like she came down with the kids. They loved being in Florida. And I ended up driving up to North Carolina and I was by myself for the holidays. And usually, like when I travel, I'm out and about, I'm doing stuff. And it's like the universe wanted me to just hunker down. And I hate that word, but here I said it. Just wanted me to kind of cozy up. And like she had a fireplace and I did puzzles and watched movies. And it was really nice just actually I get what you're saying. Like, I think it scared me initially because I was like, oh, I don't think I've ever been like alone on the holiday or, and it's like traveled. I've traveled tons by myself, but never like on Christmas. But it was a really beautiful experience. And I was like, oh, this is really cool actually to be kind of in this quietness and not in the hustle and bustle and not feeling like I had to be anywhere and not feeling like, I had any pressure to do anything. It was really I was really thankful for it. So I think that's another thing that's important during the holidays is like I hear it from clients so much and like this obligation that we feel like we have to like do certain things or to see certain people or to buy gifts or to like whatever it is, like we're so afraid of like disappointing people. Um, it's important to also like tune into what it is that you desire during this time of year because there is a lot of energy and there is a lot that's happening. So, and it can bring up like so many emotions and so many like, stuff from our childhood, like it can bring up so many things. So, giving yourself like a new tradition or giving yourself something that you provide to yourself during this time of the year, I think could really be helpful for a lot of people.
Well, and you bring up a lot of good points. One, this time of the year is this time of hibernation. It is the darkest night and the longest night. So that naturally, that desire to go inward and to hibernate and to rest and to integrate, that's also, we have the great attractor above us right now. So that's another black hole, bringing in all of kinds of information and integrating it. So a time of integration, a time of introspection. And what better time than the holidays where there's good, there's bad, and that wounding, like holding ourselves gently, providing the space that we need to heal that wounding. And I know a lot of people are feeling it coming up. and feeling, maybe the cracks in their relationships or their partnerships or their families. And so just providing the space to ourselves where we can spend the time to address it, we can treat ourselves kindly and be there for ourselves when we feel triggered, because everybody's feeling triggered. Like that's kind of what makes this a volatile time, is that everybody's feeling this wounding and this triggering, and then it just kind of bumps into each other and makes a mess out of itself. So providing that space allows us to heal and meet ourselves and nurture ourselves, and also to be able to show up in the best ways that we can. So that's really, for me, I started cutting back a lot because I was like, I want to show up in the best way that I can. And I can only do that if I have a limited amount of showing up, because I really have to spend a lot of time with myself. And I want to, I feel called to really pull back and really tend to myself and take care of myself and nurture.
Yeah, that's come up a few times, like as you've been chatting, like, um, excuse me, the importance of just noticing how you feel, right? So if you do feel obligated to go to seven people's houses on Christmas Day, like maybe the day before you don't do anything. Maybe you buy things from the store instead of feeling like you have to make every single dish. Or maybe if there's a particular person in your life that you're like, okay, I feel like I want to see them, but maybe I need to limit it to like an hour. Um, like be mindful about those things. It's not, again, I don't know why I say it's funny, but my dad, when he was alive, he smoked in the house. And I just had to set a boundary that like I couldn't be in his house like after childhood, because I guess it's some, in some way like my body was used to it, but I had really bad asthma when I was a kid. But he would get upset like when I was an adult because I would go to his house and I think I could stay like maybe an hour because I couldn't breathe in the house. And I remember he wouldn't say anything to me, but this is what my family does. Like he would talk to my sister about it, and like your sister only comes for an hour. And I was like, I can't breathe in the house. Like, and I can't help that like he doesn't like it because, right, let's go somewhere, like let's go do something, that's fine. But I'm not gonna make myself miserable and be, like unable to breathe for 4 days afterwards because, I feel guilty about not coming to see you longer. So, your response may not be that visible as like having an asthma attack, but paying attention to those things that you notice, like, okay, with this particular person or this particular situation, I'm going to limit myself. And maybe you make this year a fact finding mission for things that you need to implement later. I don't know, but just be curious about how you feel when you're in those situations. And, I think sometimes like just having that awareness can be huge because we have to have the awareness and the understanding before we can actually change it. Um, so, yeah, just be gentle with yourself. I feel like that's coming up a lot. Like just being more mindful about where you are and knowing that that can change. Like I can spend more time with certain people now than I could before because I've gotten to a point where, you know, my energy is a lot more centered. So it doesn't bother me as much, but also sometimes it's not. Like I snapped at my sister the other day and it was so curious because afterwards I was like, that was so weird. Like I wasn't feeling like overly emotional in the moment, or but it just came up and I was like, all right, like I'm sorry that I snapped at you, it's like, okay, maybe I couldn't have done anything to prevent it. But yeah, there's just a lot of energy here. Can you explain some more about the black hole energy? Like,
Mhm.
so you said it brings in a lot of information. Like how does that affect us on our physical level?
So that's exactly it. It affects us. It affects us. And actually, let me reach back. I just did a session this morning and I pulled out the dates because I was like, oh, this is right. This is happening now. So the great attractor is occurring from, and I'm very generous with my orb, so to speak. So, if we think November 20th all the way to December 20th. So we have about a month period of time. And that's actually for all the black holes, I can feel them for a month. So it's going to just keep ratcheting up from 11, 11:20 to December 20th. And you think right in the middle is where it's right above. We're straight conjunct. So that great attractor energy is just like you think of a black hole. It's drawing things into us and it's drawing, yeah, black holes draw things into themselves and they chew it up and then they spit out information. So that's kind of science is now telling us like, oh, by the way, they do swallow things, but they also spit out these streams of high vibration, high level energy, gamma. So those highest rays are coming out. What does that mean? It means that we are high level fractal information is being pulled into us and we are working on integrating it. So we're constantly chewing right now. Like stuff's coming in and we've got a mouthful. We have an energetic mouthful constantly, all the way through to the end of the year. So we're trying to integrate, trying to integrate, trying to integrate. That means tiredness, irritability. Our energy is going to get zapped. You may be a little hungrier, pay attention to what you're eating, but we're going to be consuming a lot of energy trying to integrate all of this information coming in, but it's high level information that's coming into our being. We're integrating it. And then that's where, as we go into Galactic Center is December 2nd to January 1st. And that's this year. That's kind of where it's landing. So what is that? We're bringing all of this higher level information in. And then the Galactic Center is telling us how to implement that on a day-to-day basis. So that's like that whole thing. Like, what do I want to do for my next year? Because the information coming through is so far in, it's in the future kind of information. So we can use it on our day-to-day life, but we can also integrate this information coming from the Galactic Center on how to move forward in the next year. So when I looked at the timing of these things, I was like, of course it happens at the end of the year because it's getting us ready for next year. So this is how we can move about in the very practical, like, do I move? When is a good time to put the house up for sale or, whatever it may be, like really practical information on how to function in our day-to-day lives, whether it's around the business or whether it's around moving or whether it's around relationships, very practical, down to earth information that we have access to. And, if these locations are in your chart, great. You can, check that out and then it's really amplified, but it doesn't matter whether you're connected in any way, in any aspects to the Galactic Center or the Great Attractor. Everybody's being bombarded by these energies. So if you think, whether you're awake or asleep or whatever's going on, you're being bombarded and stewed in these energies. So people are going to be cranky and short-tempered and all of that because our energy, it's like our battery is emptying. So yeah, be nice to yourself. Take a bath, take a nap, eat an extra little protein snack. Like do whatever you need to do to keep your energy up because there is a lot pulling on us. And we've been experiencing the black holes since September. There's super galactic. And then there's the Shapley attractor, kind of October-y. So it's like September, October, November, December, we're just bombarded with these energies as the year ends. So if you thought you were going to ramp up on the way out of the year, you're ramping up on gaining really amazing information and seeing things really much clearer, but your energy is that because all of these downloads are coming through. So take it slow, ease yourself into the new year, because if you're mindful and aware, you can use all of this information to really start, jumpstart in January, moving through your year and being aware of how to move forward.
Yeah, and that's when I said earlier that this is like a throwaway period. That's all I meant is that
Yeah.
I don't think it's a time to like get ramped up for things, It's more of a time to like enjoy the year, right? We're in Sagittarius season, so like maybe we do overindulge a little bit, like parties and, but it is also that spiritual expansion. So
Yeah.
the other thing that's important to remember, like as you're part of the reason that you can be tired is because your body has to make space for that information that's coming in. So it's like it's purging at the same time. So it's like you're purging all of this information that's coming in to like create space that is creating that or from that space that's been created. So it does like it, and it's cold out. Like I don't know about y'all. I'm not like Jessica. I don't like the cold weather. So a lot of times cold weather, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna hunker down. That word again. For a word that I hate, I surely do use it a lot.
Well, the hunkering down is great because you're just like, I'm gonna I'm gonna, ball up with my comfy throw blanket and just let all the information come through. Like we are
Mm-hmm.
doing work on so many levels. So just that awareness, like, wow, so much is happening and I don't have to see it on the physical level. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
part of the surrender is acknowledging that there's so much happening on the energetic and spiritual levels and just being open to that piece so that it can guide you throughout the year. And that's where it's like, yeah, follow that, desire to relax and to hunker down, like you said. And even for me, I love the cold weather, but I'm also like sitting there on my couch with my fireplace going on in Florida. So there
Yeah.
you have it, because I just love it. Like there's just a feeling, and that's for me, like I feel so close to the feeling of joy this time of year that I do things to help maintain that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, do you want to get bombarded and smacked over by these black holes? Well, if you don't pay attention, you will. Or you can just be like, oh, there's a lot of energy coming through. Let me just lay back and enjoy it. And when
Yeah.
you take the time to lay back and enjoy that energy, then it's just like, oh, this is amazing. Like, let me stop and take a deep swig of all of this delicious energy coming through.
Yeah. Um, I think the other thing I love that you like when you're talking about food, that you made a point to like, yes, indulge if you so desire, but also bringing that balance into it, making sure you drink lots of water, that you're eating well when you can. Um, it's funny, I was thinking about something that I shared with a friend. Like if I have usually the kind of breakfast that I like is, bacon and eggs and like a croissant, is kind of my favorite breakfast, but I'll throw some fruit in there to make myself feel better, like, oh, I'm eating a balanced breakfast. Um, Even if you're making those choices that you're like, oh God, I'm gonna have one more slice of pumpkin pie or whatever it is, like maybe you go for a walk afterwards, or maybe maybe the next day you eat really clean. So it's not about like beating yourself over the head or guilting yourself or whatever your go-to is, but like enjoy the holiday season while you also try to bring those more conscious energies into it. It's interesting because right now, preparing for ayahuasca, I'm in the dieta phase, which your diet is modified quite a bit. And right, it kind of tapers off. So right now, um, I'm in the loosest phase, and then it gets stricter as I get closer. I'm like, I'm just going to do the best I can because I'm still going to go to parties and I'm still going to hang out with people. So I need to also feel like I can enjoy life and not like, oh my God, I can't do that or I can't do this. Like I need to, yeah, I just need to make sure that I'm also like balancing.
Yeah, well, in creating that space, I was very mindful this year over Thanksgiving. Also, one of my favorite times because you eat a lot of wonderful food and you get to be with family and you get to talk about what you're grateful for. So I love a holiday that focuses on gratitude, and that's what it is for me, is what I'm grateful for. And I really stopped and slowed down around my food. Like, and, you know, for me, eating more protein is really healthy. So I did that and I slowed down and I was even mindful when I was putting food on my plate. So everything I wanted, oh, it's like, okay, like I'll have a scoop of that, but maybe I don't need three scoops, putting everything on there and just really being mindful with the food and even withdrawing a little bit, like, all of my family was there. I think we had like, there was like 20 people or something there, but even just kind of withdrawing while I ate and being really mindful and enjoying it, like all of the senses. Oh, this tastes good, and the warmth and, the feeling, like bringing all of my senses in. And I really enjoyed the food. And I noticed I didn't overeat. Like it's not uncommon for me to gain like 10 pounds each holiday. And this year I didn't, but I also didn't restrict. Like I had what I
Mm.
wanted to. It was just the quantity. And I was super mindful. And then it was like, okay, great. I had this delicious meal. And maybe for dinner, I just need some soup or I need something very small. And even for breakfast, like just being mindful about all of that, I was able to balance it out throughout the day. So I would say, um, for me, maybe the portion size was what I addressed a little bit more, but I got to have all of those delicious things and even was as mindful as I could be. And we actually ate, I said, okay, it was at my brother's house. We were there Thursday and Friday and Saturday. So I was like, okay, I'm going to eat this over several days. There's plenty of food. So I'm going to have this plate today and then I'll come back on and we'll have lunch. I said, why don't we just have lunch until the food's gone or until I
Mhm.
end up leaving? And so knowing that too is like, okay, this is nice. So of course, not everybody's going to have that opportunity, but for me, there was different things that I did to help reduce kind of any extreme eating and really enjoy it, really spending good time with the family and just feeling that and then having the space like to be away and to kind of retreat and to be with myself. So I found it a lot more meaningful like when I'm actually taking breaks, even when I'm traveling or even when I'm with family, 30-minute, a 30-minute nap or, just spending time by myself allows me to kind of get centered because I realize how much everybody else's energy that I haven't been around all year starts pulling. And there's like
Mhm.
confusion and overwhelm. And then there's eating. And it's just like, woo, it gets really a lot. So I found
Yeah.
myself grounding a lot more even during that activity. And it helped me feel so much better. And really, I would have to say, I think this Thanksgiving I enjoyed probably the most since my childhood because I was really present and just everything in moderation, food and people and space, just having all of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think it's important to find that balance that works for each one of us and not feel like just because you are more spiritual that you can't enjoy all of, all of the things that we used to enjoy, but maybe in excess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jessica, I don't know about you. I'm feeling like I'm at a stopping point. Is there anything else you want to share? Anything else that's coming up that feels important to you?
I think the only thing I would say is I would love to hear back from you all. What are some of the things that you enjoy about the holidays or traditions that you've created for yourself that are very meaningful, ritual or ceremony that really helps ground you during this time of year? Or even, drop in our comments this fun stuff, or even some things that you remember from childhood that you really love. I know for me, I mentioned the caroling and the baking. And so I wasn't able to find a way to make that happen this year, but next year I'm like, doesn't have to be a huge scale, but I want to engage in that in some way next year because I really love the music and the community. So tell us what you enjoy as far as tradition wise and what's grounding for you. And even if the holidays are a hard time, because they weren't always easy for me, I know that creating that tradition allowed me to take charge of that time and say, okay, well, let's heal this. And let's, like you said, Robin, let's create something new and meaningful for ourselves during this time.
Yeah. Yeah, I would second that. I wasn't a fan of the holidays for a long time. Because things were just very like I come from a big family and just things were like very chaotic. So for me it was a lot. Um, and like you said, we would inevitably have like the fights on the holidays. So it was something I kind of had to switch as I got older. I wanted to switch, and I started to look at it from more of a positive um perspective that, my family was always together on the holidays, which is really a blessing. Not everybody gets that or has that. So maybe also looking at it from that, from a different perspective can be helpful. Like nothing is all bad, even if you did struggle or if taking those things that you did enjoy and kind of making those your own, I think can be healing as you move forward in your path. So yeah, thank you, Jessica, for bringing this up.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I'm happy we got to have this conversation and also to share it with everyone. So subscribe, share all those fun things and leave us some comments because I would love to hear what other people are doing. I wouldn't have known about this 13 holy nights if it wasn't for my friend sharing that. So who knows what you share may end up being really meaningful to someone
Mhm.
else.
Oh, I love that. Thank you guys. Hope you have a beautiful week and a beautiful holiday. Whatever that looks like for you as we continue to move through December and all the fun stuff and all the connections and the the parties and the get-togethers. Yeah, just enjoy yourself a little bit. Bye.
Bye.
I can see the stars align, dance around the moon every night. And now my eyes are open wide, and the sky has never looked so bright. And I don't need